In 2020, the EU is leading the way towards the energy transition by announcing its intentions to become a carbon-neutral economy by 2050. An ambitious but important goal, and just one of the many in the EU's efforts to bring about the energy transition. What does this goal mean for the EU? And what other ambitious targets has it set for itself in the next 10 years and beyond? The learning objective for today is to detail the 2030 and 2050 goals for the energy transition in the EU. Global efforts to tackle the climate crisis naturally require targets and goals to be set that governments and companies can strive towards. Recently, the EU has set itself some ambitious targets in its efforts to achieve the energy transition. The first aims for the EU to become carbon-neutral economy by 2050. This would mean the EU would have to have net zero carbon emissions by this point. To achieve this, the EU must significantly reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. It hopes to reduce them by 55% compared to 1990 levels by 2030. In the same year, the EU aims for an increase in the share of renewable generation in the energy mix, an increase to 32%. Each of these goals are designed to follow the Paris Climate Agreements of 2015. This aims to keep global temperatures well below 2-degree warming above pre-industrial levels, and pursuing efforts to limit this warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. To stay within the 1.5 degrees Celsius target laid out by the Paris Agreement, the EU's global emission reductions will need to be significant. According to the IPCC, to meet this target, global emissions need to reduce by 7% each year between 2020 and 2030. In a fair world, this would mean EU emissions would have to reduce by more than this amount to allow countries whose economies are still developing the chance to grow. If they are to reach the same level of development as the global north, this will require an initial increase in their emissions. Bringing about the energy transition and these emissions reductions will involve changing the infrastructure of every sector of the economy to rely on renewable energy sources instead of fossil fuels. Huge investments are needed to make this possible. Investments in carbon-free infrastructure and in research and development for new renewable technologies. To meet the 1.5 degrees Celsius target, this is predicted to require an investment of 2.8% of GDP of the EU. In addition, given that the GDP of the EU is expected to grow over the next 10 years, it is important that we decouple GDP growth from carbon emissions over time. This will allow the economy to grow without emitting pollution. This decoupling is not an easy task, but one way to achieve it is by striving towards a circular economy within the EU. This is an economy that aims to redefine growth and instead focus on positive societal benefits. This would involve slowly decoupling our economic activity from consumption of finite resources like fossil fuels and redesigning the system to be waste-free. In addition, the finance system will need to be restructured to incorporate sustainable changes as a part of all financial decisions. More sustainable financial investments could be introduced to connect this finance to the benefit of the planet and our society. Finally, to achieve climate neutrality, the EU aims to introduce ecology into the economy. This could involve investing in reforestation or integrating eco-friendly practices into farming and agriculture. Not only will this help reduce carbon emissions, but also protect wildlife and biodiversity across the EU. These are some of the main goals the EU is working towards to achieve the energy transition. Without such goals, it will be difficult to incentivize national governments and companies to work together to achieve them. The next question to ask then is how we can achieve such goals. What steps does the EU need to take to be carbon neutral by 2050?